Welcome to College Football Chronicles. In August 2025, Auburn football decided to boost its image by claiming 7 national titles it previously left unclaimed. Now, before you snap at me, yes, lots of teams have done this, with in-state rival Alabama being one of the biggest offenders. Auburn just happens to be the most recent team to do this, and why they waited until 2025 when so many others did this decades ago is anyone's guess. Given these recent events, I thought it would be fun to dive into each one of these new claims and rank them based on their legitimacy, in my eyes, on a tier list based on my research of how those seasons as a whole played out and how Auburn fit into them. Prior to the college football playoffs and BCS national title game, we relied only on the polls to determine the national champion, despite the Bowl Coalition's attempts to better things for a few years. The polling system failed many times, with as many as 4 to 6 teams in contention that never even played each other. This often resulted in many split national championship years. Go back a few more years to 1965. Prior to that year, some polls voted on their national champions before the bowl games were even played, and then saw their champion lose their final game. Go back even further, in 1936, the AP poll is created, and it is often the most respected poll for many years to come. But prior to that, we had a wild, lawless 67 years of college football, where many or no teams called themselves national champions, and a lot of these teams didn't claim national titles in this era until more modern polls went back and retroactively named national champions. Confused yet? You should be. While the AP poll is often the benchmark for a champion from 1936 to 1998, I would still argue that point. If the AP named you champion and nobody else did, that smells a bit fishy. Personally, I tend to side with what a majority of the polls say. So if the AP says you are the champ, but 11 others don't, I rethink the situation. And that's just me. You are free to do or think whatever you like. For the purposes of this channel, I have broken my tiers into 4 sections. 100% legit, questionable but fair, bit of a stretch, and then just complete bullshit. And yes, I will probably now do this for every single team out there that has some claims. Be sure to look out for those videos in the future, but for now, here's Auburn. Let's first get a baseline on this tier by throwing Auburn's 2 original claims on the board. First, let's do 2010, and that belongs in the 100% legit claim. I will never dispute any team that won a designated national title game like the BCS or College Football Playoff Championship game. I may sometimes disagree with how a team got voted into those situations, but much like a political election, just because you disagree doesn't change what the outcome was and what actually happened. But enough about the 2003 USC Trojans. Anyway, 2010 Auburn beat Oregon in the BCS national title game. No arguments here or anywhere else, it appears. The other original title was 1957. While this does have a little controversy due to the Tigers being on probation, it's still also 100% legit. Auburn had paid 2 high school players $500 each and were banned from playing in a bowl. A lot of money in 1957, but the team went 10-0 and was ranked number 1 in 9 polls, including the AP. Ohio State got a number 1 ranking from 1 poll and also had a loss on their schedule to an unranked TCU. Now that we have those out of the way, let's look at these 7 new claims by the now 9-time national champions. The first season we will look at is 1910. Yes, 2 years before the Titanic sank, Auburn went out and put up a 6-1 record and were co-champions of the Southern Intercollegiate Athletic Association. The Tigers shut out every opponent in their 6 victories, including a 78-0 win over what is now Samford. They lost 9-0 to Texas in the middle of their schedule. Before we go outside the conference, it should be noted that the other co-champion Vanderbilt was 8-0-1 on the year, but 2 of those wins came against Rose Polytechnic and Castle Heights Military Academy. On the other hand, they tied national power of the era, Yale. Do with that info what you will. On the national scale, most media outlets credit Harvard and Pitt as national champions. Pitt went 9-0 and shut out every opponent by a combined score of 282-0, but interestingly enough, the Panthers do not claim the title in their 9 claims. Harvard went 9-0-1, only tying Yale just like Vandy did. The Crimson outscored all opponents 155-5 in what was considered a more challenging landscape at the time. Harvard claims this title, and so does the official NCAA record books, which you can of course take with a grain of salt. There were upwards of 15 other schools who went undefeated in 1910 with varying levels of schedule difficulty that season, and many also shut out every opponent. The fact that Auburn had a loss in all of this, and this had never been considered a national champion by anyone but the Billingsley Report for decades, is a bit questionable. Also, a bit of research on this poll uncovered that this outlet was created by Oklahoma minister and country music consultant Richard Billingsley, who was essentially just a fan with a strong opinion and did not use mathematical or statistical formulas in the beginning like many of the others, and began doing this as a hobby. In short, I have no respect for Billingsley as a legitimate national title selector, and neither should Auburn. I was on the fence at first, but I'm ranking this title as complete bullshit. Next is 1913. This season, Auburn went 8-0, outscoring opponents 224-14. Looks good so far. Also, everyone on the schedule is someone you'd recognize today with no high schools or anything, and their conference title was won outright with no co-champion. Again, Auburn was named by Billingsley much later when he started incorporating a mathematical formula into the equation, but Billingsley found a way to also pick Chicago in his indecisiveness too. Chicago went 7-0 in 1913, winning the Western Conference, the predecessor to the Big Ten. They had some close games, but this was a very well-respected conference, so I don't discredit them either. The final team to be considered a national champion in 1913 was again Harvard, who went 9-0 and were named national champions by 4 polls versus the 1 for Auburn and Chicago. The Crimson did beat Holy Cross, Cornell, Princeton, Brown, and Yale, who were all very well respected at this time, so if you made me pick one legit champion, I'd go with Harvard. However, nobody is making me do that. For 1913, I would say Auburn ranks as questionable but fair, and I'm not sure any team could be considered 100% legit this season. The following year, in 1914, saw Auburn go 8-0-1 and were co-champions of the SIAA with undefeated and untied Tennessee. The team shut out every opponent on the schedule, including the 0-0 tie with Georgia, with a combined score of 193-0. While that sounds impressive, Tennessee pretty much did the same in the same conference. There's not too much debate here, as the record books agree that things are split between Army, Illinois, and Texas, who all went undefeated with much stronger schedules. Auburn has no legitimate claim to 1914 other than something called the James Howell Computer Ranking System, which I can find very little on and lacks any credibility. I think Auburn just said, this was a pretty good team, slap a title on it. This claim baffles me a little bit and is obviously complete bullshit. We now jump to 1958, which is famously LSU's historic first national championship. I think you already see where this is going. But in 1958, Auburn went 9-0-1, finishing second in the SEC and fourth in the AP and coaches poll. The one tie came against Georgia Tech, who went on to finish 5-4-1. As I already said, LSU won the consensus national championship at 11-0. In case you didn't know, consensus means the general agreement among a group of people. Now, since LSU and Auburn did not play each other, nor did LSU play that Georgia Tech team, let's play devil's advocate here for fun. In common opponents, the teams had similar margins of victory, so maybe you could make a case. Maybe? Nah, there's no way. One tie happened. No poll selected Auburn as champion. The only thing even mentioning anything is something called the Montgomery Full Season Championship, which doesn't even turn up in a Google search. I don't doubt that this team was very good and maybe could have been competitive in a head-to-head matchup, but that matchup did not happen, and this title claim is going to fall on the complete bullshit line. We now move to 1983, which of course featured Bo Jackson, so you know it's a good team based on that alone. The Tigers went 11-1 with an SEC title, and the schedule was brutal. Auburn played number 3 Texas, number 5 Florida, number 7 Maryland, number 4 Georgia, number 19 Alabama, and number 8 Michigan, beating them all in very close games except Texas. At the end of the season, Miami was named consensus national champion after beating number 1 Nebraska in the Orange Bowl, one of the best Cornhusker teams in history without a championship. But hold on, we're not going to dismiss Auburn so quickly this time, despite the whole consensus thing, which sounds crazy, but just listen. Miami went 11-1. Who was that one, you may ask? It was a 28-3 season opening loss to Florida, a team Auburn beat 28-21. They also both beat Florida State by very thin margins, and Miami only played 3 ranked teams, including that Florida loss. It seems to me, on paper at least, that Auburn was just as good as Miami and played the toughest schedule in the nation and only came out with 1 loss. Auburn was ranked 3rd coming into the game, but due to bowl tie-ins, they would have never had a chance to win over the voters in a 3-4 bowl game, nor did we even get number 1 versus number 2. The national title was decided by the previously mentioned Orange Bowl, which was number 1 versus number 5. History is history, and I will respect the 1983 Canes, but I'm putting Auburn's claim here as questionable but fair. Next we have 1993, which is a bit complicated. Auburn was on probation for severe violations involving improper benefits to Eric Ramsey, and were therefore banned from TV, reduced scholarships, and banned from postseason play at the time. This was horrible timing because in 1993, Auburn went 11-0 and would have played the 1993 SEC champion Florida in the SEC championship, a team they had beaten 38-35 in the regular season. I can completely understand why Auburn wants this championship because they put out one of their best teams ever, so I really feel for them even as a fan of one of their rivals. Florida State lost to number 2 Notre Dame in the regular season by a touchdown but went on to capture the national title after beating number 1 Nebraska in the Orange Bowl. Look, Auburn, you were in timeout and literally banned from the postseason, so it's hard to claim a national title here. but most of the things you were banned for are not that serious today. It's a tough pill to swallow, but I see your point, so I'll give you the benefit of the doubt and call it a bit of a stretch instead of total nonsense. And finally, we come to 2004, the last of these new claims. In this season, Auburn did nothing wrong. They went 13-0 with an SEC championship and were still left out of the national title game despite beating number 5 LSU, number 10 Tennessee, number 8 Georgia, Tennessee again this time ranked number 15 in the SEC championship game, and eventually number 9 Virginia Tech in their Consolation Bowl game. Utah, USC, and Oklahoma also finished undefeated, though the Utes and Trojans had no conference championship game. So this one is tough, and probably when I and many others started to hate the BCS because we weren't including all the best teams. Ultimately, USC beat Oklahoma in the national title game 55-19, but this game is no longer valid, as in 2010, the Trojans had to vacate several wins, including the title, and Reggie Bush had to give back his Heisman Trophy. So Auburn lost a vote computing formula and wasn't involved in the national title game. That sucks, but that is how it happened. Now, I get why the Tigers might want to claim this one, as the title is currently vacant. But the Heisman has been given back to Bush, so all is forgiven, right? Not fully. Since the BCS no longer exists, it is no longer operating. Therefore, something that no longer exists and is not operating cannot officially give USC their title back. At the same time, they can't just give it to Auburn, Utah, or Oklahoma either. For the BCS, the title remains vacant. For the polls that still thought they were important after the BCS was formed, they all have USC as the champion for what that's worth. Auburn, in hindsight, you should have been in the title game, but I'm still not sure you would have won either. But the harsh truth is, you weren't in the title game. Therefore, I have to stick with what I said earlier about valuing official title games over anything else. You can't claim something you weren't even a part of, even if you thought you should have been. Bullshit it is. There you go, guys. Let's hear your arguments. I thought I was harsh but fair here, and even by my critique, I'm okay with you claiming an additional 2 titles. But let's be real, nobody outside of Auburn, Alabama is going to respect all 9 claims. Thanks for watching College Football Chronicles. Please like and subscribe and check out my other videos. I will see you next time.